Hey, what's up, everybody, and welcome to my 3 Takeaways episode from the interview that I released with Dr. Rick Brinkman this past Monday. I've talked with a lot of people recently in this realm of communication and how to communicate better with others, how to build better relationships and that sort of thing. And Dr. Brinkman has some of the best practical, tangible steps that you can start implementing now to improve your relationship with others. Make sure you go get his best-selling book that's sold over 2 million copies internationally. It's called Dealing with People That You Can't Stand. And there's some great humor in it, but there's some great practical steps that you can start applying now. And there's no better time to really start intentionally trying to apply those now when we're stuck in our houses, when we're quarantined. Because you're probably having conversations with people in your house or in your home, wherever you are, in a way that you maybe haven't had prior. And you're going to have these steps right here, these takeaways that you can start to implement. You can start to be intentional about trying to apply into your conversations. But before we get into it, make sure you guys subscribe to the podcast if you have not yet already. No better time to start getting an influx of some positive motivation and some positivity and some great tips and tools that you can start applying now. Now that the world is shut down and everything is quieted outside of you, you can really start to hone in and focus in on some of these practical steps that you can start applying to get closer to the best version of yourself. So make sure you subscribe, make sure you rate and review it, make sure you share it with a friend who also is quarantined to spread some positivity to them. But with that, I want to get right into my 3 takeaways. Number 1 is listen to understand. This is a concept that a lot of us have probably heard. I know I've heard it before. In 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, Dr. Stephen Covey talks about listen to understand, not with the intent to respond. And so Dr. Brinkman has these very 5 clear steps on how we can listen to understand that you can implement into your conversations. And number 1 is blending. 2 is backtrack. 3 is clarify. 4 is summarize. 5 is confirm. So if you want to take notes on those, write down those 5 and then go back into the episode and listen to what those are. But I'm going to talk about 2 real quick that have a big role in my life, and that's backtrack and clarify. And essentially backtracking is when you're in a conversation with somebody else and you repeat back to them what they've said to you. Because what that does for that person is it makes them feel felt and it makes them realize that you were truly listening to what they did. And that's what I have to do a lot in my interviews. And then clarify is after you repeat back what they said, you have to ask them, do I have this right? Am I fully understanding what you said? And if they say yes, then they feel good because they know they clearly communicated what it is they had to say. And if not, then they can correct you to ensure that you do fully understand their ideas. So these are some things that I've had to directly implement into doing interviews, and I've seen the impact of it there, and I've seen the impact of me implementing it into my everyday conversations as well. So backtrack and clarify have been huge for me. Takeaway number 2 is speak to be understood. So this is kind of the other half of listen to understand, and this is the half that I haven't really heard too much about, speak to be understood, because I think this might be even something that you can act on more and might be even more controllable for you. He says that we have to think of communication like a phone number. We need all the right digits and in the right order. So this is the right order for speak to be understood. Number 1 is intent, 2 is criteria, and 3 is the idea. And I'm going to talk about the example real quick that he brings up in the interview. He said he realized this a lot with couples, and in particular this one instance when at the end of their therapy session, the wife said to the husband, "Would you like to go and talk in the rose garden?" And he was like, "Nah, I don't really want to." And she was like, "Okay, fine." And Dr. Brinkman was like, "Hang on, why did that just happen?" And he started with the wife, "Why do you want to go to the rose garden?" And she said, "Well, we feel closer than we've ever felt in a long time. And I thought it'd be nice to go have some silent time and chat before we have to go pick up the kids." And then immediately the husband was like, "Oh, I would love to have some quiet time to talk." And they just realized that they both have the same intent of wanting to catch up and talk and spend some quiet time together, but she jumped immediately to the rose garden. She had jumped immediately to the criteria, when if she started with the intent, that they could have discussed the criteria together and then formed the idea after that. So intent, criteria, and idea. I found that this is something really important that I can start leading with intent in my conversations with others. And it simply you can use that word, my intent in saying this idea is X. And if you lead with the intent, that way the other person can communicate in the most effective way possible back to you. So it's kind of in your responsibility to lead with intent. That way you guys can have an effective conversation back and forth. Takeaway number 3 is behavior is like clothing. And I'm going to preface this with how this came up in the interview. I brought up the importance of not letting our judgment of somebody else's behavior be our judgment of their personality. So a lot of times we see someone behave a certain way and we directly think that that's who their personality is and that's how they are as a person, when that can get us into trouble. And he said behavior is like clothing. People wear different things in different situations. So people behave different ways in different situations. And you know this about yourself inherently, that you behave in different settings a little bit differently. Dr. Brinkman says that he's a public speaker. He's a very outgoing public speaker. He's hilarious. But when he's in social settings, a lot of times he's the quiet guy. So he's behaving differently in different situations. And if somebody was to judge him as the quiet guy and kind of judge him in a negative way, then that could potentially harm their relationship or forego that relationship from ever happening in the first place. So just make sure with this knowledge that you're not judging somebody's behavior in one setting simply on their personality. Don't think that because this person is one way here, that they're always this way. So again, guys, my 3 takeaways. Number 1 is listen to understand. I really think backtracking and clarifying are key. Making sure that you're able to repeat back what the other person said. That way you're fully listening and they know you're listening, and you can gain 100% clarity on what they mean by what they're saying by clarifying. Takeaway number 2 is speak to be understood. Make sure you lead with the intent. That way, a lot of times the criteria can come as a united through the conversation. You guys can talk about it and you can come up with the criteria together and then come up with the final idea. So that intent, criteria, idea in that order is key. Takeaway number 3 is behavior is like clothing. Make sure you don't judge someone's personality based off of their behavior in one situation, because people wear different clothing in different situations, just like they behave differently in different situations. I hope you guys liked these 3 takeaways. I feel like these are super implementable, especially right here, right now, because you're having conversations with people on probably like a more frequent basis than you have in the past, because either you're hanging out with somebody at home, maybe you're FaceTiming people, maybe you're on the phone, maybe you're constantly talking with people through like Zoom or through FaceTime with people at work. You're communicating a lot with people right now. So make sure you're listening to understand. Make sure that you can repeat back to other people what they're saying to you. And when you're talking to them to have effective communication, make sure you're leading with the intent as to whatever you're saying. That way, the other person can respond effectively and efficiently. And make sure you're not judging other people for acting a certain way during these trying times. During these challenging times, a lot of people are going to act a little bit differently than what really truly reflects their personality. So I just think these are really great because you can apply them right here, right now. Make sure you subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you share this with a friend, because these are challenging times. There's no better time to share this positivity, to share these practical steps, to share this motivation, and spread the word on how we can get closer and closer to your best you.